Welcome back to the Wizards Unite 101 podcast. This is episode number 2. And unless you accidentally clicked on something that you didn't mean to, that means you're listening because you enjoyed the first episode. So give yourself a round of applause for making it through and coming back. We really appreciate it. I am Gabriel, by the way, your host, and I'm hanging out here with my good friend, my new friend, Derek. How's it going, man?
Hey, I'm here. I'm alive. We're doing this.
This is in fact true, folks. I verified before the podcast started. He is here. He is also alive. So he is an honest man. I want to thank all of you again for listening, whether it is on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, or any of your other favorite podcasting apps. You can find us any of those places, whichever place you prefer listening to podcasts. So on this episode, we are going to play the heel. And by the way, I didn't used to know what that word meant. I always assumed it was like just something other than what it actually was. But apparently playing the heel is like being the bad guy. I learned that from my brother who likes WWE. So if you're like me and you had no idea, that is what it means. And anyways, what I mean is we're going to play the heel by we're talking about an article that does not, in fact, cast Harry Potter Wizards Unite in a positive light. It, in fact, actually questions whether or not the game is viable long-term, and perhaps maybe even if it was a dud on release. I didn't say that. I don't think Derek would say that, but there's definitely a little bit of a sentiment out there, especially in, we'll call it the mainstream normie community, those normies. They think that maybe there might be a little left on the table to be desired with Harry Potter Wizards Unite. So the article in question is from Business Insider. So this isn't just, some mom and pop blog. This is actually a pretty large publication that has a pretty large audience. And the title reads, Harry Potter Wizards Unite had a sluggish opening weekend, showing the game does not yet possess the magic of Pokemon Go. Now, before I get into some of the points that this article made, because I'm going to give you folks a brief rundown real quick, I'm also going to place a link for that's wonderful hosting, by the way, to not turn my sound on my phone off. That's professional. Can you tell I've done this professionally before?
Only a little.
So I'm going to give you folks a rundown, but the link to this article is actually going to be in the link if you're listening. And the link to this article is going to be in the description below if you're listening on YouTube, or you can go to fearthebeardmedia.com. That's the website where I have all my content and my various forays that I go into. And you can click on the Wizards Unite 101 tab on the left-hand side of the page. It'll bring you to the newest episode, and you can just click on that, and I'll have the link to the article embedded in there. Or you can just search up the title of the article in Business Insider, and you'll find it all the same. So before I go into it and give you some of the finer points of the article, I just want to say that I understand we live in a clickbait world where everything is about how many people you can get to be outraged or intrigued by the title of the article. But I don't think it's necessarily fair to compare anything in the world to Pokemon Go. I mean, Pete, what is going on here? All right, there we go. I don't think it's fair to compare anything in the world to Pokemon Go, unless you're maybe, what is that Bejeweled game that was making the owner like $10 million a day or something like that. Unless you're something like that, everything is going to fall short of Pokemon Go. So do you think that's a fair thing to say, Derek, that maybe not the fairest comparison to make, to say, well, this game wasn't as popular as Pokemon Go, so it's not a hit?
Judging the game just by how much people spend on it, I definitely don't think that is going to be a good indicator of whether it's popular or as good as Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go, if we're analyzing anything about the two games to compare them, Pokemon Go has the much wider, huger worldwide fan base for Pokemon, the Pokemon company in general, that they fostered and created for many, many decades now, versus the Harry Potter franchise, which is not nearly as big, not nearly as global. So comparing them is not fair, especially when you're looking at money. So we'll get more into the money stuff a little bit, but I don't agree that that's fair.
Yeah, and I think it was a different article that I read. It doesn't come out of this article, but I did read an article that said that the 3 biggest franchises in the world right now are Pokemon, then Star Wars, then Harry Potter. And Harry Potter is like less than half the size of the Pokemon franchise in terms of being the largest franchises in the world. So I definitely don't think it is a fair comparison to make. All right. Let's go ahead and just hit some of the finer points in this article. So they start off by saying that the game looks like it has been a disappointment compared to its predecessor. And as I mentioned, everything in the App Store is a disappointment compared to Pokemon Go. So let's qualify that statement just a little bit. Now, getting into the nitty gritty, and something we talked about in the last episode, is that if players aren't spending money long term, then of course the company isn't going to be able to devote a large amount of resources into putting new content in the game, making new in-person events, and all the other stuff that players are going to want to see long term. So apparently it was installed by 3 million players in its first weekend, and it took $1.1 million of player spending through the app stores. It's not out in South Korea or Japan yet. I think that's a big thing to mention right off the bat. I mean, South Korea and Japan are massive when it comes to the gaming market. So that's the first qualification. So when you take it down to just the US, Australia, and New Zealand over its first 4 days, they pulled in more than $28 million in player spending. $206 million was the equivalent for just those 3 places, the US, Australia, New Zealand, for Pokemon Go. They pulled in $206 million. So on the surface, it seems like, wow, this game only generated, about 1/8 of the amount of money that Pokemon Go did. But Derek and I both have some ideas about how maybe Niantic could turn things around and get people more excited about paying for content in the game. So before we get into what could, make us want to spend more money while playing Harry Potter Wizards Unite, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what was it that made us want to spend money on Pokemon Go. And I know I didn't ask you about this beforehand, but I'm pretty sure you'll have an answer or two. So why is it that you thought people were willing to spend money on Pokemon Go when it first came out?
When Pokemon Go first came out, people were willing to spend money, mostly because there was so much hype about it. From what I'm seeing and what I saw my first days playing, everyone's out, so it doesn't feel as bad to spend the money. I don't know. I mean, you spend money on storage, and you get a lot of storage for the money that you bought. In the early games, you can buy them in Pokeballs, but I'm going to say that most people probably didn't need to spend money on Pokeballs in that first month because they were leveling up so much, getting a lot of items. It was mostly the storage. So you felt like you were getting a lot out of what you were spending. At least that's how I see it. 50 storage for 200 coins was like awesome.
Yeah, and also the fact that I think it was a lot easier at the beginning to figure out if you needed to throw a Pokemon away or not, especially when you're just mass evolving and then transferring all your Pidgeys back to Professor Willow.
Yeah, the game was... So go ahead. I
was going to say, then when you compare that to, I have to decide, all of a sudden on the fly, the first day that I'm playing the game, I have to decide which potions I should be keeping, which ingredients I should be keeping, which gardening supplies, seeds and water I should be keeping. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I got to decide if I should keep or not. I don't know if that Dittany I picked up on the ground is rare or not. I mean, I don't know if I can, brew up Extemulo potions just like that. It just seems like the decisions as to whether or not to keep Pokemon or to let them go, to keep items. I'm going to slip like that, by the way, a lot, folks. So just bear with me. I've said Pottermon Go more than a few times when I've been talking with people about this game. So anyways, it's just a lot of stuff to figure out on day one. It was pretty linear. Like, I've played Pokemon before. I know I don't need to keep all my Caterpies and my Weedles and my Pidgeys and my Rattatas. I can get rid of all those guys if I'm not going to evolve them. I know I can transfer them right away, but I don't. So first of all, I don't know if I can keep all this stuff or not, or if I should be keeping it. And second of all, like you said, I was getting way more bang for the buck to actually increase my storage space for my items and for my Pokemon. So I think a combination of those two things could definitely be in play here. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think the point that you actually make about knowing which ones you want to keep and which one you throw away is actually something that I didn't process. But now that you said it, is exactly what I think the problem was with wanting to spend money originally in Harry Potter. Like, I felt like I almost had to spend the money to get the increase in the inventory, or I was going to spend so much time trying to figure out what items I actually needed that I almost wasn't playing the game. And that was my big issue at the beginning. Is me and my community were like, what items am I supposed to be keeping? What's actually worthwhile? And we spent 3 of the first days just trying to figure that out. We didn't play. We were just we're figuring it out, collecting data.
Yeah. And if you look at the subreddits, the various subreddits, you can see that everybody's coming up with their own graphic, their own infographic that they're sharing. Some of it's as rudimentary as an Excel spreadsheet. Some of it's really nice, like it's been made by a professional designer. But the bottom line is that people really need help deciding what they should keep and what they shouldn't keep. And I think, first of all, a big reason for that is that you actually don't see the recipes on the ingredients page in your vault. You have to go to the potions page where you brew potions to actually look at the ingredients in that separate tab. And I think that is a design flaw, a user experience flaw that really needs to be fixed. I think something like if I long press an ingredient from my vault, I should be able to see every potion that ingredient is involved in making and how much of a quantity of it I need to make any particular potion.
Yeah, having to memorize like, oh, I need 4 Dittany for this. That's not a very good gameplay mechanics.
Right. It just adds to confusion. And that kind of takes me to my first point that I wanted to get into here is that I think less is actually more. I think that players were less incentivized to spend money because of an overall feeling of overwhelmment. Is that a word? Overwhelmment. We're going to go with that, by the way. Don't fact check me on that. I know you've got your computer in front of you, folks. People were probably feeling overwhelmed, and I don't know, like that makes me not as excited to play the game hardcore. Like when I started with Pokemon Go, I logged in, I threw the freaking Pokeball at the Pokemon, I caught it, and I knew it was that simple. I could look in my inventory, I could see if I had potions, I could see if I had revives, I could see what kind of balls that I had to use on the Pokemon, and that was that. It was pretty simple, and it encouraged me because I don't want to spend money on something I don't feel confident on. And when you take me into the Harry Potter Wizards Unite world, I'm like, whoa, let me learn about this a little bit. I get it that you're asking me for all these microtransactions, but just let me get a feel for the game. Let me figure out what I'm doing first. And I think that just really put a damper on the, pedal to the metal right out of the gates, people flying and spending a lot of money.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue that I've heard, honestly, is that people felt overwhelmed by the amount of times that they're being prompted to buy things. And they're like, should I be buying these things? They're telling me to buy these things. Oh, look, there's a cool deal. Is that a good deal? Like, there's so many pop-ups for spending coins that you never know if you should be doing it or not.
And that's also one of the things that I was thinking was that there are so many prompts for spending coins that I get it that that's how they make money. So I'm not one of these bitterly resentful folks who just, want to make a post on Reddit whenever they have a pop-up come up and talk about how this game is just a bunch of money hungry, greedy developers, billionaires trying to become multi-billionaires. No, it's like they made a product, they made it free to play. They have to capitalize on it somehow. I empathize with that. I really do. And I think that that's the essence of what makes this game viable long-term. But at the same time, some of the choice of placement for some of the pop-ups as to, how easy it is to click them and accidentally spend money. And some of the screens, like, how many of us have got stuck either having to expand our vault so we can hold more potions or not be able to take that potion at all. I think we've all been in that place before, or any of the other items that you can't store because your vault is full and you either have to upgrade your storage right away or you're not going to get to keep the items. I don't know if I really hope that was a design flaw and it wasn't something that was created intentionally to dupe you into paying gold. And if it was, I think that those types of things do actually go a little too far over the top, because even if the person ends up spending gold at that moment because they don't know if what they're giving up is too rare and they're not going to get to, have it in the future because they don't really feel well versed in all the different items and what they do yet. Or even if that person knows what they're doing, but feels compelled to spend the money because they don't want to let their items go. I think that person is just a little bit less likely to spend money in the future because they feel like they kind of got taken advantage of. And at the core, nobody likes to feel like they got taken advantage of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody that's going to spend money because they feel like they just have to do that because the game is making them, that's not a good idea. I had another thought here. You just took me in a separate place that I'm just like, I've been tricked twice. I've been tricked twice into buying energy because I will get into a trace and I'll be like, oh, I don't have the energy right now. And I go to hit the run button, but the run menu that it brings up and the coins to purchase energy menu is the same exact spot. And the yes button's right where the coins are. So I have hit that button thinking it was yes and spent 200 coins buying 50 energy that I didn't need to. I can just go to an inn. It's right down the street.
Yeah.
That pissed me off so much.
Yeah, I can empathize with you, and a lot of other people can. That was the number one complaint that folks were having outside of energy being scarce in general, was just that it is so easy to accidentally spend gold. So I really want to I don't like being cynical because I don't think it doesn't do anything for you, first of all. It just poisons your worldview. And it also doesn't actually provide anything constructive to the team that's actually, looking at these sort of subreddit comments and maybe listening to podcasts like ours or other YouTube content creators and trying to get an idea for where they should go with future developments for the game. So I try not to be cynical. I really, really hope that it was just a design flaw or even if wasn't a design flaw and they intended it to be there, that they weren't thinking in terms of we're going to trick people into spending money and accidentally clicking on stuff. Because if that is the case, I think that's just really, really poor long-term planning, because it's just going to poison so many people. Like a lot of people have the mindset, if you fooled me once, you're not getting my wallet again.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, there's one of my favorite microtransactions in the game. Just to kind of take it to a good spin.
Yeah, absolutely.
The bag of runestones, the 40 gold, you get 10 level 1 runestones that you can use in the fortress battles, because you need to have a runestone to do any of those battles, and it's really hard to get those in a regular. Like, you may think that you have a bunch early on in the game, but you realize that is a finite resource. They're going to slow down really fast. So getting 10 runestones, 10 free fortress battles, but not free, but 10 fortress battles for 40 coins, that's nothing. That's an awesome microtransaction. It feels good because you're getting a lot out of it and you're not spending a lot. I think that that's a really good design that they need to stick to if they're planning to make microtransactions like continuously this up in your face.
Yeah, I think that is a great idea. And I actually am curious because I haven't bought any runestones yet. I'm only level 13. I have maybe a half an hour a day to play. Once or twice a week, I can go out for a couple hours. So I'm not quite up there with a lot of you folks yet. What level are you?
I am level 22. I just hit it today.
I figured you'd be up there in the higher levels. So I haven't gotten to that point. I'm still in the honeymoon stage that you just described, where I have plenty of runestones, and I think that they're just going to fall like manna from heaven for the rest of the gameplay.
Oh, I wish I could be that still.
Yeah, so I hear a lot of people that are getting into the 20s that are saying that same thing, that runestones are not finite, are not infinite. They do become finite, and it becomes really difficult to advance in the game if you don't buy a few microtransactions worth of runestones here and there. One question I have, because I haven't had to do that yet, is it a random assortment of levels of runestones? Or are they all level 1?
At least in the experience that I've had, when you go to buy the bag of runestones, it shows you the 10 that you're going to get, and they've all been each family, so each one is unique, and they're all level 1.
All level 1. I wonder if that'll be a microtransaction upgrade that they add in the future, where you can pay a little bit more to get all level 2s, a little bit more to get all level 3s, etc., and so on.
I'd be willing to spend more to get higher level runestones, because I use those for my dailies right now, or for grinding on a brain elixir.
Yeah, I think that is. I think that's a really positive way to look at it too. Is that there are some microtransactions that are worth it. And I was just kind of thinking to myself that the way to go might, if you're completing your daily challenges and you're getting your gold to start, a really good way to go with it might be to upgrade your storage to at least a certain level to begin with that gold. And then once you've kind of got it to a comfortable level, whatever, it's unique for each person. And a lot of it, I think, is going to depend on how many inns and greenhouses you have in your area, how many spawn points you have for ingredients to be found, or, foundables out there. Because, if you're like me, who spends a lot of their time in places that don't have a lot of inns, I actually upgraded my energy to like 200 and I think it's 235 right now. So that way I can once or twice a week go out and I could get all 235 of my energy filled up. And then kind of like, a whale, I just kind of hoard it all and I burn it real slowly, but I can get by on playing for 3 or 4 days on 235 energy and then go back out for a big session again and pump it back up. So for me, it was worth it to invest the money at the beginning to make my inventory bigger, my energy capacity bigger. And then once I've done that, then maybe I can just slowly grind out runestones, like you said, once I get to the point where runestones become a little bit less common.
Yeah, that is absolutely what I think the best design is if you're going to spend the money in this game. And I have not regretted upgrading my vaults, buying the vault upgrades. I'm only sitting at about 145 energy, but that gets me through a night because the apartment that I stay in has a ton of stuff all the time. So it gets me through a whole night, and then I can go through, pick up energy on the way through town again, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything.
Now, do you have anything specifically that maybe they're not monetizing now, or a specific way they're not monetizing now that you think might be advantageous to them to monetize in the future that might get people even excited about spending money?
So that is an interesting question, because I was actually just hoping that they would revamp some of the purchases in the game, and I think that would make them more excited. But for new stuff, I think that we would need to see new content first. I know that we've found adversaries in the game code, which are going to be just like what people are speculating, because we don't have a lot to go on, but they're probably going to be like raid bosses is what people are expecting. So I'm expecting to see something like a raid pass purchase from Pokemon Go.
See, you kind of read my mind when it comes to the new content and then ways to monetize, but I would really like to see the friend system have some sort of monetization in terms of sending gifts to friends. And that's not gifts like, the moving cat images that you send your friends in chat. I'm talking about gifts like the presents you open up on Christmas morning. I think maybe, if you want to buy spell energy, maybe instead of having to spend, however much, what is it, 100 gold for 50 spell energy?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, maybe you could spend 100 gold and you could send somebody like 150 spell energy. Or
that's interesting. Like That's interesting. I don't know that I would ever actually do that.
But see, do you have children? I should ask that before we start a podcast.
No, I don't.
See, for me, that would be totally worth it because I only get to go out and play with my daughter maybe once or twice a week. And so when she's out of energy, and she's a little kid, she walks slow, she gets distracted by everything. Oh, Daddy, there's a new song that got released by Justin Bieber on YouTube. Disclaimer: I don't even know if Justin Bieber's still making music, and I'm definitely not in tune with today's music. But you get the point. Like she gets distracted by everything. It's really hard to go out and like grind her 150 energy capacity that she has right now so that we can go and play for a couple hours afterwards. It would totally be worth it to me as a father to be able to send her a gift because she's on my friends list of 150 energy for her to get and make that cost less than just buying it for yourself. I think it would really encourage the social interaction part of the game.
That's an interesting perspective. I didn't ever think about it that way because, again, I don't have kids. But I could see that being something that could be useful, actually.
So moving along to one last aspect of this article, Jam City was the company who made Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery. Have you played this game yet?
I have not. I didn't even know it existed until I went into the store and found that it was, when I first searched for Harry Potter Wizards Unite, Hogwarts Mystery actually popped up first.
See, this is the only thing that really concerns me. As I mentioned quite a few times earlier, I don't really care that Wizards Unite only made, $26 million or whatever, or $28 million. Pokemon Go, Wizards Unite is projected to make $10 million in the first month. Pokemon Go made $206 million in the first month. That doesn't really bother me. What bothers me is that this game, Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery, took in $7 million from players in its opening weekend, which absolutely dwarfs the 1.1 million in spending that Wizards Unite took in from players. That tells me that there is a dedicated market of people who are very loyal and willing to spend money on the Harry Potter series, but they didn't do it on Wizards Unite. So I think, and I haven't played the game, so I can't really give any insight here, but I think that a good place to start for the Niantic team, if they're trying to figure out, some of the reasons why monetization didn't actually occur the way they thought it would in the first weekend, the first month, would be to take a look at what people were spending money on in Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery and try to maybe integrate some of those elements or some of those aspects, replicate them into Wizards Unite in some fashion potentially. Because if there are a lot of people, I would venture to guess just about everybody who downloaded and played Hogwarts Mystery, they probably have Wizards Unite on their phone right now.
See, it's interesting that you bring up Hogwarts Mystery, because just from what I've read, and this is only from the two subreddits, everyone actually was complaining because they felt like the microtransactions in Wizards Unite were the exact same kind of money grabs that Hogwarts Mystery was doing that they didn't like. So I'm wondering if everyone got burnt out from Hogwarts Mystery's microtransactions that they tried to duplicate, but everyone recognized it and were like, no, I'm not doing that again.
Interesting. See, I hadn't read anything about Hogwarts Mystery on either of the subreddits, so that wasn't even something that had crossed my mind. But yeah, that could be a critical misstep if there was already a Harry Potter game out on market that had taken money from people and left them feeling dissatisfied. And a lot of folks are just like, never again, not going to happen.
That has been the majority of the comments that I've read when comparing the two games together, especially with microtransactions.
Interesting. Very interesting. So I think the overall consensus here then, and feel free to correct me if I'm not really representing your thoughts very well, but I think the overall consensus here is that there are definitely some aspects of the in-game store that are positive. And those things tend to be either the things that increase your storage permanently, so they allow you to experience the game in a more enjoyable way, moving forward for the rest of the time that you're going to be playing, or it's something like runestones that are what enable you to continue really progressing your character by battling in fortresses. But everything else, and especially the placement of some of the pop-ups that ask you to purchase things with gold, that stuff it's not really enticing to players who are looking to maybe spend a little bit of money, but they don't want to feel like they're being forced into a corner in order to enjoy the game.
I think you've nailed pretty much exactly what I was trying to say. And I'm just looking at the shop again now just to see like what kind of stuff is there even available to purchase that I haven't even looked at. And it's like dark detectors and potion crates. I don't think that those are worthwhile, but the stuff that we talked about definitely is a very positive aspect of microtransactions in the game.
Is it just me, or are dark detectors just about the worst investment that you can make?
Everyone agrees with you except for me, but that's only because my experiences have been fantastic with them.
Really?
The first day that we played, my friends and I accidentally dropped 3, not knowing what was going on, and we found, I want to say, in the 30 minutes that we sat there, 4 different emergencies.
Really?
But nobody else is finding emergencies with them, so I'm just like, what did we do right? But we only dropped them on 1 in, so I don't know. It's not like we dropped 3 on 3 or 3 on 3 ins. It was just 1 in, and we sat there for the whole time. So I don't know if maybe because we were in a good spawn area already, and maybe it was just a coincidence that we found those. But I don't see emergencies on a regular basis. So
Yeah, I found my first emergency level threat last night, actually. It was the Whomping Willow. It was on fire.
oh, I haven't gotten that one. That's awesome.
I had to augmente that bad boy.
I think we had oh my gosh, Albus Dumbledore was like the one that stuck out in my brain for that moment.
By the way, what's your favorite and least favorite spells to cast so far?
I absolutely hate Incendio. Incendio's the worst, but I like Mateo Lojinx Recantum, I think is how you say that.
Yeah, that's the one that took me the longest. Is it like Mateo? Yeah, Lojinx Recanto, something like that.
I'm like, it's like meteorology or something, and then end it. So, but that one's the easiest for me to get masterful on. I've been doing that since day 1, but I have never ever gotten into masterful on Incendio.
Yeah, my least favorite is Ebublio. Ebublio. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So the ebubonic plague is what it is for me, because I have absolutely no confidence whenever that spell comes up. I try and I try and I try, and I'm lucky if I get a great. I don't think I've got a masterful on that one yet.
I think that's my friends agree. They all hate that one, but I'm like, I don't find it that problematic. But I occasionally there's some really bad.
Arrest Momentum is my favorite. I feel like I'm very good at tracing the letter M.
Ew, that's like my second least favorite one.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. The sharp corners always drive me away.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, all right. Well, is there anything you would like to add before we go ahead and see this podcast off?
Spend money on what you think is worthwhile and enjoy the game, please.
Yeah. And I think, in case we were overly negative, I probably should put in one qualifier here, and that I do think that if you enjoy the game, you should spend a little bit of money on the game, whether it is the storage upgrades like we recommended in runestones later on, or if you do find yourself in a pinch playing with friends and you just need to bite the bullet and buy the energy. If you are enjoying the game, I don't want to say that I don't want to be as presumptive to say it's your duty to put a little bit of money into the game, but I would say that, if you actually if you have an expectation that the game is going to be here 3 years down the road, like Pokemon Go still is, then I do think there's a little bit of responsibility from each member of the community to at least, show their support to the team by putting a little bit of their greenbacks into the game. So that's kind of how I always thought about it. You kind of like you have to vote. You have to vote if you want to complain, and if you want the game to get better, you have to at least contribute to the people who are getting paid to do it.
That's 100% true. This game's gotta keep going somehow.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, thank you for listening to this second episode of the Wizards Unite 101 podcast. As always, you can check us out on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, or any of your other favorite podcasting apps. You can also follow us on social media at Wizards Unite 101 on Twitter and Instagram. We will be back next week for episodes 3 and 4. Those come out on Tuesday morning and Friday morning. Thank you all very much for listening. Have a good week.